Joe Biden has waged a war on American natural resources and made it harder to produce affordable, reliable, and clean energy right here in Utah. Our energy prices are already going up. Biden's policies will make it worse. But Republican John Curtis has our back. There is no greater supporter of unleashing American energy than John Curtis. John Curtis knows our abundant natural resources help keep us free and safe, powers our economy, keeps the lights on, and keeps Utah on the move. John Curtis is Utah tough. He's taken the fight to Joe Biden and the Washington politicians who all want to hurt American energy. And now we need a conservative to take the fight to the United States Senate. We need Republican John Curtis, a strong defender of American energy dominance in the fight for us.
Paid for by Clear Path Action Fund. Not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We're back to a crash-free commute on all the Valley freeways as crews have just completed clearing up an accident southbound I-15 at 600 North. Overall, Valley Freeway traffic looking good. Need a perfect event venue? There's a place. This is the place, Heritage Park. Ideal for weddings and events, featuring 11 venues, beautiful grounds, affordability for any celebration. Call or visit thisistheplace.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, strong south winds through the day till a front moves into the valley areas tomorrow. And we'll see rain changing to snow into Sunday. The Wasatch Front Valleys could get 2 to 5 inches. The northern mountains up to 2 feet. Right now, 61 degrees, mostly cloudy skies, and it's windy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. A special edition of Inside Sources.
We want to look at what is actually going to impact you, your community, your neighborhood, and the state of Utah.
KSL is live from the Utah State Capitol building with state lawmakers. It's Eye on the Hill 2024 with Boyd Matheson and Inside Sources.
Well, we are broadcasting live today from the Utah State Capitol, last day of the 45-day session here in Utah's Capitol Hill. And, of course, it's always an interesting thing when you compare and contrast what happens in the state of Utah versus what happens across the country, and particularly in our nation's capital. It is always refreshing. And while there are many things that I think everyone will moan and whine and wince a little bit about in terms of how we do things in the state of Utah, comparatively, this is a model of efficiency in terms of what gets done. We often refer to it as the fastest 45 days in the country. Legislature that meets for 45 days to get the work of the people done is a real model, on time, on budget, and within our means. I think that's an important thing. So we're going to do a wide range of things as we go through the next 2 hours. And, of course, Jeff Kaplan will be here picking things up at 3 o'clock. He'll take you into the evening hours. And then we have some KSL at night to march your way towards the end of the legislative session. There's always a flurry of activities on the final day. You get a few things getting pushed through, some things getting parked or benched or pushed to the back of the line. And so we'll try to keep our eyes on all of those things as we go through the afternoon. Of course, you can stay tuned to KSL News Radio throughout the day and throughout the evening tonight as we close out the 45-day session here on Utah's Capitol Hill. We've got a wide range of guests that are going to join us today, including Brian King from the House of Representatives here on Capitol Hill. Will be joining us talking about some interesting things in terms of the data, in terms of water and the Great Salt Lake, amongst other things. He'll weigh in there. Also, we'll have Representative Celeste Malloy is going to join us at the top of the 2 o'clock hour, having come back from Washington, D.C. And, of course, today we noted that Congress has once again beat the clock. No shutdown tonight. They have punted it to President Biden signed the bill this afternoon, which extended the funding of the government for 7 whole days. So lawmakers will be back at it over the weekend in our nation's capital trying to figure out the budget process and getting the government funded. I think they ought to just do a swing by here in the state of Utah. I think they could probably learn a few things about how you stay on budget and get the funding done. And so we'll watch that. Celeste Malloy will weigh in her experience back there dealing with a shutdown showdown and what that's going to mean moving into next week. And, of course, next week is Super Tuesday. That will be very big on the presidential front with 15 additional states having their primaries and caucuses, including the state of Utah, on Tuesday. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go through the show and rolling into next week, what that will look like for Republicans and Democrats, as well as some of the minority parties who will caucus on Tuesday the 5th. So we'll break all of that down as we move along as well. But as we round out the legislative session, it's always interesting to take a look back in terms of big things that did happen, and often it's the big things that didn't happen that are often the things that we have to keep our eye on when it comes to state funding and state government. And, of course, KSL has been with you throughout the 45 days, giving you all the behind-the-scenes look at what is happening. Holly Richardson's going to join us coming up here at 1:20 to give her perspective on a few of those things that did make it through, and some of the things, as we said, some things get parked, some things get benched, some things get pushed to the back of the line. And those priorities are always very interesting to me because often it's what you choose not to do in a legislative body that sends as clear a message as anything you decide to do in a legislative body. And legislative leadership is an interesting thing. It is the most challenging kind of leadership because it really requires kind of an all points of the compass approach. And that's not easy. It's not executive leadership like leading a company. It's not executive leadership like being a governor. It's why I always said in Washington, the most frustrated people in Washington, D.C. are former governors and former business executives. They are part of what I always dubbed the Flat Forehead Society, as they would walk around the building slapping their forehead saying, I don't understand how this place works. There's no other organization in the world, no business, no other kind of government that can function the way Congress tries to function or doesn't function these days. And so it's an interesting thing to look at, and it is really the art of persuasion. It's also the focus and the leadership of different groups and entities. And then, of course, one of the things that I love most about being up here on Utah's Capitol Hill is the fact that it is so open. Everybody can come by. Just as we were coming in and getting set up today, saw a number of families coming out of the gallery, younger children here in the Capitol, and that's a good thing for people to be able to see the process unfold. And it's something that we all have to look at is, are we leaning in? Are we fully engaged in what's happening in our state government? Because it's so easy to get so hyper-focused on what's happening nationally. And we talk about the national things because they matter and they do impact us. But if you want to know what really is going to hit you, it's going to be the state government. It's going to be your local government, your city and your county. That's going to impact your day-to-day living far more than many of the battles, especially the political battles that we see back in our nation's capital. And so as we look at those and as we look at the legislative session, of course, it's everything from higher education, a lot of conversations this year, of course, around funding for stadiums, baseball, hockey, and otherwise. What does that all mean? Taxes, of course, another big topic of discussion up here during this 45-day legislative session. And so we'll break all of those down and try to help you connect the dots and make all of that news make sense for you on a Friday as we roll into the weekend. And as I mentioned, we're going to have a number of guests joining us here, and we're broadcasting live. Again, if you're just joining us, we are up at the Utah State Capitol. KSL News Radio will be here all afternoon and into the evening tonight. So Jeff Kaplan, of course, will pick up right at 3 o'clock. He'll get you home. And as always, Jeff will get you home a little smarter and a little safer. As you navigate that, he'll keep you up to speed on all the last-minute things happening. And then, of course, KSL at night will also be broadcasting from up here at the Capitol as they close out the legislative session. So all of those are crucial conversations, critical things that are happening up here on Utah's Capitol Hill. I think one of the things that is most interesting to me when it comes to the state legislature, it's one of the things that we had George Will in town last fall. He and I went up and spoke to the great students up at Weber State University. And George was so complimentary of the way Utah gets things done when it comes to the state legislature. The fact that there is a balancing of the budget every time around, that it gets done on time. He really was amazed that Utah does this in 45 days. And I have to tell you, you can go anywhere in the country. I don't know anyone who can do it more efficiently or more effectively than what happens up here on Utah's Capitol Hill. And it doesn't mean we always agree, and it doesn't mean that we always love everything that gets done. It doesn't mean that there aren't mistakes made or egos that get bumped or bruised or people who do things that maybe might be in their political interest more than the people's interest in terms of good policy. But I would say for the vast majority, it is working incredibly well. It is a great model, and it is something that the rest of the country can really take a good look at and see how we actually get some things done. So we're going to go ahead and step aside for a quick break. When we come back, Holly Richardson will join us with her observations and insight into what has happened, what hasn't happened, and what comes next up on Utah's Capitol Hill. We're broadcasting here live all day on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
The Cougars pull out a big win on the road.
Beating the 7th-ranked Kansas Jayhawks.
Saturday, it's BYU, TCU.
Right down the barrel and right through the hoop.
Pregame is at 6 and tip-off at 7. Listen Saturday on Utah's legacy home of Big 12 basketball and the BYU Cougars. KSL News Radio.
Life-changing moments don't just walk up and hit you like a ton of bricks. Sometimes, life-changing moments are as simple as a friend's advice or reading a book that gives you new perspectives on old dilemmas you have. That's why, for you, it may be time for LIFT. LIFT stands for Love is Forever True. Written by Greg Stephan, LIFT explores 87 personal experiences with family, friends, and those from the other side of the veil. LIFT challenges ideas you've wrestled with, maybe your entire life. It's about love and pure truth, and the reality of another world after we leave this one. Visit Amazon today and search for LIFT, L-I-F-T, Love is Forever True by Greg Stephan. This could be one of those life-changing moments you weren't expecting, but will embrace with all your heart. Here are the answers no other resource may have ever offered. That's LIFT by Greg Stephan. Find it exclusively on Amazon today. LIFT.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth, and if you owe back taxes, the news isn't good. The IRS is raising the interest rate it charges on unpaid taxes, and further rate hikes are expected. Most people don't know it, but the IRS adds interest charges to your tax debts daily. So if you owe the IRS today, you'll owe even more tomorrow. And it doesn't stop until you get right with the IRS. The good news is getting right can start with one phone call to Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm. Optima's tax professionals specialize in the Fresh Start Initiative, a powerful IRS program that can save you thousands if you qualify. In fact, the experts at Optima have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients. Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Les Olson IT now provides building security solutions. Do you need physical access control for your facilities? Are you looking for video surveillance systems accessible in the palm of your hand? Les Olson IT has what you need, and their low-voltage network cabling specialists will install it and make sure it's working the way it should. Learn more at lesolson.com.
Les Olson IT.
Jazz Plus is here. With Jazz Plus, you can watch games live from your TV, computer, tablet, or phone. So don't miss any of the action when you're at home or away. Can't get enough of your favorite team? Go behind the scenes and see what the team is up to on and off the court. With flexible plans, you can choose what works for you, from full season to monthly, or just pick a single game you want to watch. Sign up and subscribe today at UtahJazzPlus.com.
If you only have a 401k, you're not getting the most for retirement.
Wait, what?
Add a Robinhood IRA on top, then they'll boost it by 3%.
You can do that?
And if you transfer in any retirement account, you get 3% on top of that.
Is there a limit to the match?
No limit. Robinhood Gold gets you the biggest contribution match of any IRA on the market. Sign up for Robinhood Gold at Robinhood.com/boost by April 30th. Subscription fees apply.
Investing involves risk. 3% match requires gold for 1 year from first match. Must keep IRA for 5 years. Match on transfers subject to additional terms and conditions. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel neglected or unloved? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America, but this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Smartin. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah's legislature has approved a bill to help build a new basketball and hockey arena in downtown Salt Lake. Second, there won't be a government shutdown at midnight. President Biden has signed a temporary funding bill. And third, the Arizona legislature looking at a bill that would allow property owners to use deadly force against migrants crossing their land. Right now, 61 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources. A special edition of Inside Sources, live from the Utah State Capitol on KSL News Radio.
Well, we are live from the Capitol today. We are actually in one of the committee rooms today. I actually think is appropriate. This is where things should be talked about. And as we come down the home stretch, it is the fastest 45 days, I think, in the country when it comes to legislative work. And it's an interesting thing to just watch how it plays out. Some things are great. Some things are tough and challenging. And we're going to dig into that a little bit in this segment of the program. Really thrilled to have Holly Richardson joining us with Utah Policy, and someone who's both an astute observer of what happens here on Utah's Capitol Hill, and she's also covered it from all points of the compass. She's been a member of the legislature, so she's been on the floor on a final day. We'll talk about that in just a minute, as well as someone who covers it regularly for Utah Policy and, of course, Deseret.com as well. And Holly, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Boyd.
Isn't it great to be in a committee hearing room, not having a committee hearing?
You know, it's always good to be back at the Capitol. So we have access from our homes, and that's really great, but there's something really unique and special about being here in person.
Yeah, there is, and I do love that. I was mentioning it during the first segment that I love the fact that I can see kids walking down the hallways and parents and young people going in to listen from the gallery and be part of that process. It is a good thing.
Yep.
Well, let's start with some of the things that are happening in terms of some policy. One area that I don't think has gotten nearly enough coverage is around this whole area of domestic violence. You've been tracking this specifically. Give us some updates there.
Yeah, there's a couple of bills that are really important bills. One of them is called Ohm's Law. It's after Om Gandhi, who was killed by his father last year in a domestic dispute. So it was a custody dispute, and so what happened is the judge actually gave full custody to the dad, even though the mom was presenting evidence of we have a restraining order, he's threatened to kill us, he's threatened to hurt us. And so what this bill does is say that it, among many things, but it says that the courts have to take that into consideration if there is credible evidence. And if the child is saying, I don't want to go, they need to take that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. And so does that move all the way Governor?
It hasn't yet, actually. So it has some last-minute amendments on the Senate side, and it's over on the House for concurrence, which means they don't think there's going to be any disagreement, but it will go today, yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. We'll keep our eye on that one as well. What else are you tracking as you come down the home stretch? This is where the big flood, the board gets full really fast, but what else is on your radar?
It's so interesting. So one of the bills that is interesting to me is whether we're going to allow volunteer chaplains in schools. That bill made it through to the Senate side, but the way it works at the end is they take all the bills off the board, they send them back to the Rules Committee, and then they parcel them back out. So that bill is sitting in the Rules Committee right now. Whether it comes out or not, we will see later, right? Earlier today, they passed the NHL bill for the hockey revitalization district for downtown. They passed the NIL bill, which is the name, image, likeness bill for college athletes, exempting them from GRAMA, but also, you know, part of the process of how do those student athletes get, I guess, how do they allow companies to use their name, image, and likeness? So those are a couple bills that already passed today. They just, before lunch, the House just passed a big energy bill. Energy independence, and talking about how great Utah coal is, and that one passed. And
okay, onward we go. So I want to get in for the next few minutes. I want to get into some of the process pieces because again, you've covered it from the outside. You've been on the floor for this marathon day. We always joke that it is the 45 days, but the last day is like 6 years because it goes all the way to the end. And just describe that for our listeners in terms of all the things you're trying to process and think through and vote on as you go through the last day of a legislative session.
Yeah, so the last day, I would not be surprised if they pass at least 100 bills today. That's a lot, right? It means you're not going to have a lot of discussion time on the floor on each one. So earlier this week, they passed 97 bills on Wednesday. They passed 85, I think, yesterday. Wow. So it really speeds up. So there's no committee hearing, there's no public input. And what you're trying to do is, especially if you're a legislator and you still have bills that haven't passed or haven't died, right? You're trying to make sure that your bill is prioritized by the other body. So if I'm a House member, which I was, then I want to make sure that the Senate is moving my bill to the top of the calendar so that my bill gets heard before we run out of time at midnight. And that's what happens, right? Every year you'll go to the interim session and people will say, this is a really good bill. It had a lot of support, but it died on the board. And what that means is they ran out of time at the end of the session and didn't get it passed.
Yeah, I think that's always such an interesting thing to look at because I think the things that we decide not to do when we start running out of time, you have to kind of get to the essence of things. And so kind of walk us through that in terms of a process because, again, I think it sends a big signal of what we choose to park or what we let die or what we postpone.
Sure. Well, this is a place where the behind the scenes, there's a lot of politicking.
Shocking.
So the budget bills have already the budget prioritization's already been passed. It's interesting. There is a bill that has been killed, but it was prioritized and funded, but the bill is dead. And so maybe they're going to bring it back, and that could be a zombie bill because until the very last minute, anything could happen. So you can suspend the rules and you can pluck a bill out of the graveyard and you can vote on it again. Or you can call a bill back and say, we want to reconsider our actions. We passed it, but we've had some behind the scenes conversation and now we're going to kill it. I mean, so there's a lot of that kind of jockeying and, you know, working. If you're a House member, you're working with your Senate sponsor to get your bill up to the top. The year that I was really focused on one specific bill, this has been a long time now, 2005, we started at the very beginning of the session. I think our bill was like number 26 of the House bill. So it came out early, and it did not pass until 9 o'clock at night on the last day of the session. we were just like, oh my gosh. Passed that year, and it's still law, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Just in our last couple of minutes, Holly, anything surprise you this year in terms of things that we're focused on or things that we're not focused on?
Yeah, I was surprised actually at some of the things that I saw. I saw a lot. It felt like a lot more resolutions. I never really did a count. Felt like a lot of message bills this year saying, you know, hey, you know, we're going to pass this resolution, or, you know, you're running a bill that you know has no chance of being heard because it's coming out, you know, this week. But you can go back and tell your constituents, hey, I ran this bill. And I think some of that may have come from having the filing period moved to the very beginning of January, so everybody knows who their opposition is, if they have any. I think that might have changed the nature of the bill, but I didn't see as much focus on like family issues, for example. So there's a ton of bills that impact education, and I think you could fairly say family kind of touches all the areas of politics. But as far as like childcare and how do we support families, and there was a tax credit that was extended for families of young children, and there was one bill, it was the same bill that allowed children to be in an unlicensed daycare. But other than that, there's been a lot of other conversation, I think, about stadiums, about water, about energy, those types of things, but fewer bills really focus just on the family.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting as well in terms of, again, a lot of big issues, stadiums,
big.
water, environment kinds of things. So I think that's interesting. Just in our last minute, I want you to go back to this idea of the filing period. So the fact that the candidates had to file before the session began so that everyone knows who they're likely to be up against in a primary or in a potential fall race. Right. Just describe that impact for us real quick.
Well, it's hard to know because you either know exactly who you have, or if the filing period is after it's over, then you maybe have suspicions, right, of who you might have. But what that does is it allows people to focus their legislation or their talking points on the floor towards their voters. Right. So either the delegates maybe in a Republican process, or if they're in a swing district, they're going to make sure that they're going to, thread the needle between the people who are maybe more conservative and the people who are more liberal. There are some purple districts in our state, believe it or not. Yeah. But I think that early filing period of saying we know exactly who we're campaigning against and how we're going to do it. You even see some legislators who are campaigning against the governor while they're legislating. That I'm not sure I'm a fan.
We will come back to that one because that's a big one, because when the politics start to get right to the floor of the legislative process, that's where we rarely get good policy. We get a whole lot of politics. Holly Richardson, of course, editor of Utah Policy Daily and a member of Deseret News, and a great insider for us here and a great perspective as always. Holly, thanks for joining us. We'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. When we come back, it's time for our weekly Inside Sources inside look at presidential politics. It was a big week for that in the state of Utah. We'll do that coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Less than 24 hours left in the Utah legislative session. Few bills still in need of some action. House Minority Leader Angela Romero spoke with Utah's Morning News, saying there's one bill addressing sexual assault and rape crisis centers that she hopes can be moved forward today.
HB 114, which is rape crisis centers. And so what this will do is establish standards of care and guideline for people nonprofits who operate rape crisis centers.
Other bills still waiting for action include potential funding for an NHL stadium, privacy for NIL contracts for athletes, and a bill to create a state water database. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The United States is planning to start airdrops of food and other humanitarian aid into Gaza. President Biden made that announcement today after a meeting with the Prime Minister of Italy.
In the coming days, we're going to join with our friends in Jordan and others in providing airdrops of additional food and supplies.
Dozens of people were killed this week when Palestinians rushed aid trucks crossing the border. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, about 93 points. The NASDAQ, though, up 183 right now. And our KSL weather, we're expecting a storm to move in tomorrow. Strong winds in the front of that. More on that just ahead. KSL News Time, 1:31.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Only one type of burger. For every pallet. Fries are extra. Large in size. We've got the shakes. Going over the brim.
Hey, this is Chris from JCW's.
Put a positive, delicious spin on your day at any one of our 5 locations. In Lehigh, American Fork, Provo, South Jordan, or Harriman. JCW's, quality, and a lot of it.
What would you say if I told you could get a free furnace? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I hope you'd at least say, tell me more. Now, before you get too excited, let me explain how this works and why we do our free furnace sale. We feel like we've got the best HVAC techs around and we want to keep them. But the only way we can do that is if they're working and providing for their families, so we set money aside for this free furnace sale. We're only able to give you this great deal because you're helping us keep our guys busy. It's actually great if you've been thinking about replacing both your furnace and air conditioner, because when you have Any Hour Services install a new air conditioner, we'll give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it. About $400. The furnace is free, you just pay the labor. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services by March 31st to schedule a free estimate. One of our HVAC supervisors will come to your home and explain all the details. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services today and schedule your free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Furnishing our living spaces hasn't changed much in decades. Until now. Euromax authentic European furniture starts with the room. Cabinets, sliding doors, dressers, and desks that are as smart as they are sleek and modern. Combining classic European design, exceptional quality American craftsmanship with convenience, comfort, and technology. Euromax declutters your space, designing entire walls of elegant, smart, and stylish storage, taking beautiful advantage of every inch. Living rooms, bathrooms, kitchen, and bedrooms. Features like concealed wiring, built-in charging, integrated lighting, automation, and tech. Sustainable, eco-friendly furniture built for your lifestyle without compromise. Construction, finish, and hardware feature a lifetime warranty. Prepare to be excited about your living space. See it in action at EuromaxFurniture.com. EuromaxFurniture.com. Euromax, built for you.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
A problem-free drive on the Valley freeways. We have a report of lines down 4700 south, 3200 west. And an accident in Murray, 4500 South Commerce Drive. That's about 3rd West. The Crossroads of the West Gun Show comes to Ogden this weekend at the Weber County Fairgrounds. Get great deals on guns. Plus, you can buy, sell, or trade at the show. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, strong south winds through the day until a front moves through tomorrow afternoon. We'll see rain changing to snow into Sunday. The valleys could get 2 to 5 inches, northern mountains up to 2 feet. Right now, it's 61 degrees and mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, where Utah's news, traffic, and weather stand.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. A special edition of Inside Sources.
We want to look at what is actually going to impact you, your community, your neighborhood, and the state of Utah.
KSL is live from the Utah State Capitol building with state lawmakers. It's Eye on the Hill 2024 with Boyd Matheson and Inside Sources. Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Well, that is all the things right there. We are broadcasting live from Utah State Capitol today, final day of the legislative session. It will be a flurry of activity between now and midnight tonight when the session formally gavels out and ends. And you can stay with KSL News Radio throughout the afternoon and evening. Jeff Kaplan, of course, will pick you up at 3 o'clock, get you home safe and smart with all the updates happening. And then KSL at night will also broadcast live here from the Capitol as, again, that big flurry of activity coming down the home stretch. But it is time for our weekly segment, Inside Sources, gives you an inside look at presidential politics. We've been doing this for a while now, and as we look behind the scenes on both the Democratic and Republican side of the aisle, as we march our way through 2024, we are very quickly approaching a big date in presidential politics. Super Tuesday will be March the 5th next week. And, of course, Utah will play a part in all of that. this year, as both the Republicans and the Democrats will be caucusing. Some of the other minor parties are also caucusing as well. Make sure you're aware of all of those. This is your chance to lean in and weigh in on those candidates running for president of the United States. And so as we look at it this week, I want to start off with kind of the dueling split-screen battle between the former president and the current president as it relates to border security. It was very interesting to me yesterday that you had both the current and the former president at the border in Texas. They were just a few hundred miles apart. And yet worlds apart in terms of the way they framed the issues and the way they looked at it. Sadly, I think both of them failed the test in terms of policy because this was much more political and positioning and posturing than it was really getting to the principles and policies that we actually need to have to secure the border and to have an immigration system that actually works. So let's start with kind of the dueling pressers down there at the border. Both President Biden and former President Trump visited. President Biden addressed the former president and his current rival specifically, calling on him to work together, to come together, to pass some bipartisan border security and immigration bills. And here's the way President Biden described it down at the border yesterday.
I understand my predecessor is an eagle pass today. So here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of playing politics with this issue, instead of telling members of Congress to block this legislation, join me, or I'll join you, in telling the Congress to pass this bipartisan border security bill. We can do it together. You know and I know it's the toughest, most efficient, most effective border security bill this country has ever seen. So instead of playing politics with the issue, why don't we just get together and get it done?
All right, so that was President Biden yesterday as calling out to the former president, saying, join me or I'll join you. Let's call on Congress to get something done and to move that forward. As was mentioned just down at Eagle Pass, Texas, just down the road a little bit, President Trump had his own press conference, and here's the way he teed up the conversation.
3 years ago, we had the most secure border in history, and people weren't coming because they knew they weren't going to get in. We had the safest border in the history of our country, and now, outside of this area where Texas has done an amazing job, and in a pretty short period of time, they're going to have it all covered. They have just been incredible.
So I think for both Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump, when all was said and done yesterday, much more was said than is going to get done in an election year. Both sides of the political aisle love to use immigration and border security as a wedge issue. You've heard me say that before. They both love to use it as a way to raise campaign cash. It's a great way to rally up the base of both the left and the right. But none of that actually delivers us results in terms of what needs to happen for the country. So I think that was interesting. And also thought it was interesting that when former ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, was here in the state of Utah this week, she actually called out both the current and the former president for failed policies at the border. And I said we need to have a different kind of discussion when it comes to border security and immigration if we're going to get it all the way to the end and get some good policy implemented. And, of course, in the run-up to Super Tuesday, Nikki Haley to do a quick visit here to the state of Utah, spoke down on the campus of Utah Valley University as with an invitation from the Herbert Institute down there, former Governor Gary Herbert. And in her conversation, I had the chance to sit down with her and have a one-on-one conversation. And I wanted to play you two clips from that. You can watch the entire interview, my sit-down with Nikki Haley on Sunday edition on KSL5 TV at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning this weekend. And that will get you all ready for Super Tuesday. But I asked Nikki Haley what she learned from the American people. That's always an interesting thing, to see those who are crisscrossing the country. Great leaders are great learners, and I asked the former ambassador what she has learned from the American people as she's been traveling and campaigning.
And I go and I see what the American people are saying, and I think they feel the fragility. When you listen to them, they don't talk about political talking points, and they don't talk about parties, so to speak. They talk about their kids. They talk about the debt. They talk about the fact that groceries are so expensive. They talk about the fact that they don't think their kids are going to be able to buy a home. They talk about student debt. There's so many things that they are feeling every day that is not even being talked about in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that more politicians need to be out among the people. Because when you hear what they have to say, those are the things that matter.
It is those conversations about the kids and the grandkids and what's going on in the community that really matter. And it was part of an interesting hallway conversation with Ambassador Haley talking about what she did at the UN, how she would invite the ambassadors from China and from Russia to her home to have dinner with she and her husband. And they wouldn't talk politics. They wouldn't talk international affairs. They'd talk about the kids and the grandkids and build those relationships that you have to have, even with those that might be perceived as being your enemy. Relationships still matter, and I thought that was an interesting portion of the conversation while Ambassador Haley was in town. I want to end with part of my interview with her, and I asked her the question I ask all people running for office, doesn't matter what the office is. I want to know what's going to make all of this headache and heartache of a campaign worth it, even if you come up short on Election Day.
This is about me putting on the warning signs to say, don't ignore what's happening right in front of us. We are better than this. We can do better than this. But we have to agree that we have to be part of the solution. I'm willing to take the cuts. I'm willing to take the bruises. I'm willing to take the pain and the name calling. Because I think good things come when you go through the pain. But I also think that you have to go through the pain to appreciate the blessing. And I'm hoping everybody will see through this and we can all appreciate the blessing.
So you have to be part of the solution. You have to be willing to go through the process, and that's part of the reason why we're actually broadcasting from Utah's Capitol Hill today, because here in the state of Utah, everybody can be part of the process. But I did think that was interesting from the former ambassador and current presidential candidate who's really making her pitch to Utah voters, and we'll get into that a little later in the show as we talk about caucus night coming up on Tuesday, March the 5th, which is Super Tuesday, where many around the country, 15 states, will weigh in and have a big impact on the presidential race for 2024. Well, that wraps up our Inside Sources inside look at presidential politics. We'll step aside for a quick break. We'll continue to broadcast from Utah's Capitol Hill, final day of the Utah legislature, right here on KSL News Radio.
I'm author Richard Paul Evans. My wife once told me that I share too much. I probably do, but maybe that's why I've had 46 consecutive New York Times bestsellers. It's also why I've named my new book, Sharing Too Much, Musings from an Unlikely Life. Sharing Too Much is a private look into my thoughts on love, marriage, the world, and life as a writer. For my readers, you'll get to know me more intimately, the husband, father, and the writer behind the books and movies that have inspired millions worldwide. The national reviews have been great. She Reads writes, a most anticipated anthology. Evans' wise insights and powerful advice is the gift that keeps on giving. Kirkus writes, Evans shares a half-century of ruminations, succinct musings meant to inspire. Sharing Too Much contains 59 essays, including How I Saved My Marriage, which had more than 100 million readers worldwide. Sharing Too Much by Richard Paul Evans. On sale now at your nearby bookstore or online. Also available in audiobook and ebook.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from the station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
The IRS finally caught up with Louie.
I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I owed the IRS a lot of money.
Louie was in deep trouble.
We're going to take your house, put a lien on your bank account, garnish your pay. They don't care. They're going to take your paycheck.
Louie found out about Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima Tax, they helped me. They calmed me down. They made me feel comfortable, and I trust them.
Louie has a lot to be thankful for.
I don't owe the IRS anymore, and I'm able to live a comfortable life, a lot better life. It was because of Optima Tax.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation. Take it from Louie.
If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. Give Optima Tax a call. They can help you.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. Optima Tax Relief. Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Good morning. I'm the 40% off window company.
40% off? Of what?
Hey, 40% off.
Yeah, I'll bet it's your biggest sale of the year. This week only, because you need a model home in our neighborhood. Well, nothing. It's baloney. Hi, this is Kathy.
And Doug of Window World. When you hear those things, you know you've entered the baloney zone.
Resist the force of the baloney zone.
Find Window World online at windowworldutah.com.
Or call Window World at 281-8111. That's 281-8111.
And that's no baloney.
Would you like to be part of an important research study and receive up to $550? The Beehive study at the University of Utah is comparing how well 2 different FDA-authorized booster vaccines protect people against COVID-19. You can decide to get a booster or not and still participate. By joining the Beehive study, you'll have the chance to receive up to $550 for completing activities such as weekly COVID tests and brief surveys about your health. Call 801-203-0320 or email beehivestudy@utah.edu to learn more. You can also visit the study website at www.beehivestudy.com.
Jeff Kaplan. I'm energized by breaking news. First of all, because it's right now, and second of all, because in many cases the audience needs to know. There's no more important service that we can provide, and I find it critically important to get more details to the audience as quickly as possible. There's nothing more energizing than that for me. Not at all. The most important thing we do is breaking news. I am gratified that so many people listen to me every afternoon on KSL, but what they don't know is that there are so many people behind the scenes making it happen, checking on the traffic, answering the phones, making the calls, talking to the newsmakers. They're out in the street, into the field to get the raw information, and then putting it all together so that I can sit in front of a microphone and be a source of information every afternoon. But there are so many people who make it happen. That's what you don't know.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Sure, humans can be a little weird at times, but take it from me, I'm a dog. And a person is about the best thing that can happen to a shelter pet. So if you want to learn how you can be that person, get down to your local pet shelter or visit theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah's legislature has just a few hours left to get its work done and pass a budget for the coming year. Second, a storm is on the way that'll drop some March snow on the Wasatch Front this weekend. And third, after a truck delivery of food turned deadly in Gaza, President Biden says the United States will begin airdrops of supplies there. 61 degrees right now, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources. A special edition of Inside Sources, live from the Utah State Capitol on KSL News Radio.
We are broadcasting live today from the Utah State Capitol. We're in the committee hearing room. I think the appropriate place to have a community conversation, so we appreciate you joining us. And we're going to lean in during this segment of the program on something that we talk about often on this show, and that is how do we deal with those that are unhoused, unsheltered, whether that's chronic, whether that's transitional, and what are the best ways to make sure we get the right kind of help in the right kind of ways to the right people so we can get them on the right path, because that's the real result we want to get to. And really thrilled to have back on the program with us today Randy Shumway, of course, is the founder and chairman of the Cicero Group. He's also the co-chair of the Utah Homeless Council. And Randy, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So as we kind of continue our conversation, we always resort to Albert Einstein saying that he wasn't smarter than anyone else. He was just willing to stay with the question a little longer. And you've been staying with this question. You had a fantastic series of opinion pieces at Deseret.com, staying with the question as it relates to homelessness and some of those challenges. And so as you continue to think through this and think about this, give us something to start with in terms of what should we be thinking differently about as we start to approach that, whether it's here at the legislature or whether it's us in our own communities?
Boyd, you and I talked about this last week. For our chronically homeless population, this is an absolute human crisis based on debilitating trauma. And if we diagnose the root problem accurately as trauma and clearly define human dignity as the ultimate objective, we start thinking about solutions a lot differently.
Yeah, and so as we look at some of those potential solutions, one of the things you pointed out in one of your pieces at Deseret.com was how sometimes we unintentionally make things a little worse rather than better. Describe that for us, and then how do we get to that better conversation?
Well, I think there's myriad examples. I'll just define two, but we can deep dive others. One is the inconsistency in which laws are enforced. We actually, by not enforcing the laws, we're hurting the population that we most intend to help. And second, we need policy changes that help individuals reintegrate into society as they continue healing and maintaining their improvement.
Yeah, and so as you look at how we go about that, and again, a lot of it is getting the skill set or the pieces, the discipline pieces that they need in terms of work or employment opportunities that way. Give us some sense, because I know you've looked at this nationally as well as very acutely here in the state of Utah, but who else should we be looking to? What other conversations are happening around the country that we ought to be factoring in as we look at that good policy side of it?
Hennepin County has a great model called Know Them by Name system, which creates a personalized improvement plan for every single individual and then provides the wraparound services to help them along the continuum of improvement. Another good example is in Miami-Dade County, Florida, where they've implemented the sequential intercept and diversion model. And what that does is, rather than just throwing every person who's breaking the law in jail, instead they take the time to diagnose the root problems. And if they're a predator exploiting the weak, then they need a timeout. They go to prison. Yeah. But if the person's mentally disabled, they don't need jail. They need comprehensive, inpatient, full-time care to get their medications correct, to get them balanced, and to help them be of a full mind. Or if the person's misbehaving based on substance use disorder, again, they don't need jail. They need detox, along with a comprehensive inpatient social and medical care to overcome that addiction. So what the sequential intercept and diversion model does is tries to very smartly diagnose what are the root problems and get the services that help the individual start to heal and improve as they change their life and change their behavior.
That's so important. Now, one of the other things I know that you focused on is making sure we've got everybody from service providers, stakeholders, and in particular criminal justice. We've talked a lot about that on this show in terms of the reform that needs to happen there, because often we put somebody into the criminal justice system, they do whatever amount of time it is, and then we put them back with very little chance for success or a different outcome other than to be back on the street, back homeless, and potentially back in the system again.
Boyd, I could give you story after story of that example. 5 years ago, Maureen and I were working with this wonderful woman. She had the sweetest little boy, and she'd been sober for 2.5 years. She had just graduated from the recovery center, but she couldn't find a place to live because of the obstacles we create for people who have criminal records.
Right.
Maureen and I were bound and determined we were going to help her find an apartment. I think we drove to 35, 40 different locations, paying $35 to $45 per application and getting denied. We went through this experience. Honestly, each denial emboldened me. We are going to get to the solution. But in hindsight, without me realizing it, each denial caused her so much pain and insecurity as she relived this trauma. In the end, we found her an apartment. I'm thinking eureka, celebration. But within 6 months, she was back on the streets. And if you ask me, I think those repeated rejections played such a damaging part in causing that relapse. And so that's just one of many stories I could tell where we inadvertently obstruct rehabilitation. And so we've got to change policy so that we're rewarding successful completion of long-term care and continued behavioral progress by allowing individuals to truly reintegrate into our society.
I don't know if there's anything more important than that, because so often that failure cycle and also the resentment that builds up in that failure process, because anyone who's gone through any kind of addiction program knows that one of the biggest reasons for a relapse is resentment. And whether that's building up resentment with a boss or a spouse, and rejection, and that they're all integrated there. And so making sure that we are rewarding the success and that mobility, I think, is so important. Just in our last 60 seconds here, Randy, anything else we should be thinking of rolling into the weekend in terms of policy change or things that you're hoping to get the discussions rolling on?
Well, we need to remember that law enforcement is not mean. It protects our most vulnerable, and so we need to champion those that are on the front line doing their best to help people in recovery. And second, we over-index on punishment rather than change, and there has to be consequences. There has to be accountability in order to infuse that energy toward changing one's life.
Yeah.
But that's an activity that serves a purpose, and the objective is human dignity. The objective is helping them heal and move to a better place.
Love it. Randy Shumway is the founder and chairman of the Cicero Group. He is the co-chair of the Utah Homeless Council. Randy, always appreciate your perspective. We will stay with this conversation as well. It's a crucial one for our community, for our society, and as you said, for the human dignity of all. Randy, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Again, that's Randy Shumway, and that's just a crucial conversation, and we will continue to have it. We will stay with it because we have to get it right. We can get it right here in the state of Utah, and we can show the rest of the country what that looks like as we move it all forward. Well, that wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We're broadcasting live from the Utah State Capitol for the rest of the afternoon. Jeff Kaplan will pick up at 3 o'clock. KSL at night will come in as we close out the legislative session, so stay with KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Representative Celeste Malloy is going to join us here at the Utah Capitol to talk about some national news coming up next. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, a high wind warning being issued for the next 2 days. KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson says wind speeds starting around 40 miles an hour tonight could potentially get up to 60 to 70 miles an hour by tomorrow.
Now, there is a chance if we hit the higher end of projected wind gusts, if we hit that 60 or that 70, we could see some damage to power lines or trees. Damage usually starts at the threshold of 60 miles an hour.
Experts say you should secure any outdoor objects, prepare for power outages, be careful on the roads over the next couple of days. Once the wind blows over, the valleys will get between 2 to 6 inches of snow once the front moves through tomorrow afternoon. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Louisville firefighters rescued a truck driver from the cab of a semi that was hanging off the edge of a bridge over the Ohio River. Broadcastify had the initial call-out.
I have a report of an NBA that Court Memorial Bridge got a semi hanging over the edge of the bridge, hanging over the water.
The driver was roped into a harness with the firefighter and hoisted to safety. She was checked out at a hospital, but the fire chief says she appears to be okay. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, 90 points right now. The NASDAQ is up 183. And our KSL weather. Yeah, we're looking for some strong winds before that front gets here tomorrow. More on that next. KSL News Time 2:01.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Life-changing moments don't just walk up and hit you like a ton of bricks. Sometimes life-changing moments are as simple as a friend's advice or reading a book that gives you new perspectives on old dilemmas you have. That's why, for you, it may be time for LIFT. LIFT stands for Love is Forever True, written by Greg Stephan. LIFT explores 87 personal experiences with family, friends, and those from the other side of the veil. LIFT challenges ideas you've wrestled with, maybe your entire life. It's about love and pure truth, and the reality of another world after we leave this one. Visit Amazon today and search for LIFT, L-I-F-T, Love is Forever True, by Greg Stephan. This could be one of those life-changing moments you weren't expecting, but will embrace with all your heart. Here are the answers no other resource may have ever offered. That's LIFT by Greg Stephan. Find it exclusively on Amazon today. LIFT.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you have a drain that's clogged or backed up, after you've tried the plungers and products, the next step usually involves some kind of drain snake or cabling equipment. You see, sometimes the blockage is far enough down the line that you need special equipment that most homeowners just don't have. That's where the Drains Department at Any Hour Services can help. A drain snake can clear most blockages and get the water flowing again, and clearing blocked drains is what our Drains Department does day in and day out. So if you're a homeowner with a drain line that's clogged or backed up and you'd like one of our drain technicians to come and snake the line for you, it's only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Crews are working to clear an accident westbound to I-80. It's after I-215's west belt, but before Bangerter, so about 3200 west. It's been blocking a right lane of travel. Save up to 20 cents off per gallon using Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Find a Sinclair station, store amenities, purchase history, and enjoy a simple, secure way to pay for fuel. Download the free app today. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Our KSL weather, strong south winds through the day until a front moves through tomorrow afternoon. We'll see rain changing to snow into Sunday. Valleys could get 2 to 5 inches, the northern mountains up to 2 feet. And right now we're looking at 59 degrees with strong south winds. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. A special edition of Inside Sources.
We want to look at what is actually going to impact you, your community, your neighborhood, and the state of Utah.
KSL is live from the Utah State Capitol building with state lawmakers. It's Eye on the Hill 2024 with Boyd Matheson and Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We are broadcasting live today from Utah State Capitol. Last day of the legislative session. We'll have wall-to-wall coverage here on KSL News Radio throughout the afternoon and into the evening. So Jeff Kaplan will be broadcasting live here starting at 3 o'clock. And then, of course, KSL at night will pick you up a little later on in the evening. And that will be a fast and furious moment as the legislative session comes to a close at midnight tonight. So there's a host of bills that will be coming along that will either get through or get parked or benched or postponed, or they will let it die on the board, so to speak, as it doesn't actually get a vote. So those things will all be interesting to keep perspective on. I know Jeff and our KSL at night folks are lining up all kinds of great interviews from legislators, from other leaders here in the state of Utah, as they march their way towards midnight and the close of the 45-day legislative session here in the state of Utah. It is the fastest 45 days in the nation, and it's one that so many around the country look at and are just amazed. Many, I think we kind of take it for granted here in the state of Utah that our legislatures are only full-time for 45 days. Now, if you ask them, there's a lot of other days where they're in a lot of meetings, a lot of hearings, and so on, where they are putting the time in. But so many around the country have full-time legislatures, full paid system there, and that creates a different dynamic. I think the 45 days that we do here in the state of Utah are very effective and very productive. And it's a way to get things done, get it done swiftly. And the fact that we can balance the budget as well as get things funded and get the right things focused on, I think is a good testament to how things get done here in the state of Utah. And, of course, it's not just here in the state of Utah, but a lot of things happening nationally as well. We're going to be joined momentarily by Utah Congresswoman Celeste Malloy, representing the district here in Salt Lake. And, of course, she has the 2nd district, which goes all the way down to St. George in the southern portion of the state. And she's been back in Congress and has gone through the first lovely process of stopgap spending bills and continuing resolutions. So we'll break that down with her and her experience there, as well as some of the things that she's getting done. A bill passed and moving forward with some good impact there as well. So we'll continue to do all of that as we go through the day here on Inside Sources. And as we look at the national perspective of things, if you missed it during the first hour, we did our Inside Sources Inside look at presidential politics. And I think one of the most interesting things from the day yesterday was not the fact that you had both the current and the former president talking about immigration, but they were both in the state of Texas, on the border. And it was one of those where there was definitely much more said than is going to get done or get turned into legislation. So we're going to keep our eye on that. It's one thing to talk border and immigration as it relates to politics. It's another when it comes to good policy, which is where we have to get. And racing in is Representative Celeste Malloy. And Representative Malloy, I want to thank you for making the trek to the Capitol. You ran up the hill and up the stairs and catch your breath. And as you looked at what took place just over the last, really in the last hour, President Biden did sign in the stopgap spending, the continuing resolution. Here we are again. So the good news is you have an extra week back there. This is your first intense. It's not good news. It's horrible news.
We need to get something done. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad we're still working on it, but it would have been better if we'd have just passed spending bills this week. And I don't know that a week gives us that much more time to get work done so we can pass them next week. Hopefully we do.
Yeah, not a lot of wiggle room there with a 7-day continuing resolution. They seem to be getting smaller and smaller and smaller in terms of what they're doing there. But describe that process. And you've been in a legislative office. You understand the legislative process. Give us your perspective in terms of how did that play out? What were the hallway conversations with your colleagues?
Yeah, so the hallway conversations are, do we pass another short-term CR so that we can get to the point where we're ready to pass spending bills, because we don't have the votes right now to pass spending bills. And that alone is frustrating. I mean, we've been talking about this for months. Yeah. The appropriations bills have been done for 6 months, 7 months, something like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how much more people need to know how they want to vote. It's just a game at this point, and we shouldn't be playing games with this. This is one of the few things the Constitution says Congress is supposed to do. To pass a budget, we're supposed to pass spending bills. So we need to just get after it and get them done. But I am hopeful, because we only did a 1-week CR, that they actually do think we've got the ability to vote on it next week. And just to be clear, I voted no. When I say we passed a 1-week CR, they passed it without my help.
Yeah.
But I think we can get some spending bills passed. What I would like to see us do is pass the 12 appropriations bills separately, and I'm not sure we're going to get that far. I'm hopeful that we'll pass spending bills, but they might be grouped,
right?
3 or 4 bills at a time. But I have people ask me all the time about big bills that we haven't read, and this doesn't really fall into that category unless the 4 corners get together and negotiate something different than what's in the House appropriations bills. But we do know what's in the House appropriations bills, maybe not in granular detail, but it's not the same as a brand new 7,000-page bill that no one's seen.
Yeah, exactly. And having each of those 12 appropriations bills is the regular order, is the process that it's supposed to be. And actually, you're supposed to be working on the one that's going to be due on September 30th of this year.
Yeah.
So we're still a year behind.
Yeah, I worked for an appropriator for 4 years, and this is appropriation season. This is the time of year we're normally getting all of those appropriations requests in and hammering out the policy writers.
Yeah.
And we're still talking about this year's funding, last year's bill.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can get to some regular order there. I know that's a big thing on your agenda in terms of priority.
Yeah.
There's some other things you're getting done, too, though. You got a bill passed through the House. Tell us about that.
That was really fun. It's a technical bill. It's not one of the ones that's super sexy to talk about, but the Women-Owned Small Business program, WASB program, helps women-owned small businesses, and there's a goal of getting 5% of government contracts awarded to WASBs. And the Inspector General for the Small Business Administration found that there's a loophole in there where businesses have to prove that they're women-owned, but they don't have to prove they're small. And the whole point of this is to help small businesses get into this program so the same really large businesses aren't getting all of the government contracts.
Yeah.
So this closes that loophole so that they'll have to certify that they are both women-owned and small to be part of the WASB program.
Love that.
We don't even know how we're doing at awarding those contracts because we don't know if they're actually small businesses.
Oh, wow. And I think that's such an important thing, again, for the government. It's easy to reward those contracts to the big companies who can afford an army of lawyers and lobbyists to get those through. We always say that it's the entrepreneurs that drive freedom everywhere, right back to the founding of the country. And so I think having that, especially here in the state of Utah, we have such amazing women-owned small businesses that drive the economy and make such a difference in our communities.
Yeah, and the idea is that they won't be small businesses forever.
Yeah.
You know, if they can get going and get a few contracts, then they can move out of that small business category and then they can compete.
Yeah.
But we're just trying to sort of incubate them while they get competitive. And I was at an event in southern Utah and somebody said, I don't think you should be working on this because I don't think the government should be picking winners and losers. And he's not wrong. The government shouldn't be picking winners and losers in business, but we're talking about government contracts.
Yeah.
So by awarding contracts, they're already picking winners.
That's
what
right.
we're trying to do is spread that out so they're picking more winners.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really important distinction because we definitely don't want government putting the thumb on the scale. But right now they're putting a lot of dollars into a lot of big organizations who again can lobby and have lawyers to do all of that.
Yep.
And so leveling that playing field and giving really a Lincoln model of let's clear the path of laudable pursuit for all, give everybody a fair chance at it.
Yeah.
And so what's the path next? You passed it through the House, now it moves over to the Senate side?
Yeah, so it went through the Small Business Committee, so then I assume the Senate's version of the Small Business Committee will have a similar bill. Right. And then, if they're identical, then it goes to the president's desk, and if they're not, then we'll have to reconcile them. And in the last few years, everybody's kind of gotten a good education on how that works. The Schoolhouse Rock video isn't totally obsolete, but it's more nuanced.
It's a little more nuanced than the Schoolhouse Rock. But we love Schoolhouse Rock on here. We try to apply that wherever we can.
Good.
Last thing for you, Representative Malloy, as you kind of look forward, obviously presidential year, all of the other distractions going on. Getting the government funded will be a big piece of that puzzle. What else is on the agenda? What do you hope the people of the 2nd District are thinking about?
Obviously the border, and as I dashed in the door, I heard you talking about that, so I know that it's something that's on your mind and on the program. But I also hope people in the 2nd District are thinking about sort of the big picture fundamental things, the principles of good governance, because we're at a really interesting time right now where with such a small majority in the House, such a divided government, we can't just push things through. I mean, nobody can really push things through. You've got to get everybody on board to do anything. And it has its pros and cons. The cons are we're not getting anything done and everybody sees that on the news. But I think the pro is this is a time to figure out what we should be doing to try to get people on board. And so I hope people in the 2nd District are thinking about that. I hope they're thinking about what they want out of government and what government should be doing. I know what I think the answers are. I think we need a lot less government and we need it to be a lot more responsive to the people. But this is a chance to have your voice heard. If you want government to be more responsive to the people, everybody has to be responsive right now. We don't have a big enough majority to do anything that doesn't have huge support.
Yeah, so important that perfectly framed, and especially as we broadcast from a state capitol where things do get done, and where there is that accountability closest to the people, is so important. Representative Celeste Malloy, thanks for making the trek up the hill and up the stairs. You even did it without needing oxygen. I think I would have needed oxygen for that high degree of difficulty today, but great insight, and congratulations on getting that first bill passed through the House. We hope the Senate will pick that up in a hurry for those women-owned small businesses, especially here in the state of Utah.
Thank you.
All right. We'll go ahead and step aside for a quick break. We'll continue to broadcast from Utah's Capitol Hill. Final day of the legislative session. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around.
When winter weather strikes.
Terrible conditions from snow lingering from the overnight hours.
KSL has you covered.
One of our listeners said it took him an hour to get from Lehigh to Draper this morning.
Don't let the sun fool you. The next blast of winter comes this weekend. Get an accurate forecast every 10 minutes on the 9s.
On KSL News Radio.
For John's 60th birthday, his family planned to drive down Old Route 66. But the trip took a detour when his wife got sick with RSV. It's a highly contagious virus that can lead to breathing problems and hospitalizations.
This year, we don't want to cancel our plans. We're protecting ourselves with Pfizer's RSV vaccine, Abrysvo, respiratory syncytial virus vaccine.
Abrysvo, a vaccine to prevent lower respiratory disease from RSV in people 60 years and older. It's not for everyone and may not protect all who receive it. Don't get Abrysvo if you've had an allergic reaction to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may decrease your response. Most common side effects are tiredness, headache, injection site pain, and muscle pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-844-989-7284 or visit abrysvo.com.
So don't wait. Ask your pharmacist or doctor about Pfizer's RSV vaccine, Abrysvo, because every breath matters.
When the weather warms up, it's like a stampede, except instead of dust stirred up by hundreds of hooves, it's a cascade of phone calls to Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Soon as the sun shines and the snow's gone, people want new windows and frames from Utah's #1 custom window maker, and the wait for installation grows longer. But right now, you can get near the front of the line by calling for a quote and get $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's on top of the incredible savings for the highest quality double-pane windows and frames, any style, any color. See, at Advanced Window Products, they actually build the windows here in Utah, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. There's no middleman, and they can pass the savings on to you. They even offer buy now, pay later. So get in before the wait grows longer and get the $2,500 off. Get your new windows this spring. Make the call. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Two friends taking pictures of the rising full moon on a summer night.
Two teenage kids doing what teenage kids do.
When a stranger with a gun and a death wish changed everything.
It was violent, it was senseless, and I will never understand it, I will never accept it.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and unfortunately, we're all too familiar with stories about how violence shatters lives. But what we rarely see is how they are rebuilt. In a new podcast, The Letter, we relive tragedy, but only so we can hear the rest of the story. The struggle to reclaim lives, the realities of grief, and the possibilities of forgiveness.
I believe in miracles. Sometimes I thought, there are no miracles. Yeah, there are, and this is a big one.
Follow the letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me. And believe it or not, they really do make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for talking and preparing me for what's ahead.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, we'll be getting some strong winds tonight and tomorrow before a snowstorm moves in. Second, the Utah legislature has to end its session at midnight before the deadline. Third, a truck driver was rescued from the cab of her semi as it was hanging off the edge of a bridge over the Ohio River. Right now, 62 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources. A special edition of Inside Sources, live from the Utah State Capitol on KSL News Radio.
We are live from the state capitol. We're actually in the committee hearing room, which I think is appropriate because we can talk about things that matter to the folks here in the state of Utah. And KSL News Radio will be broadcasting from the capitol all day today into the evening with Jeff Kaplan, and then KSL at night as we come down the home stretch on the legislative session here for 2024. And really thrilled to have joining us in the committee hearing room someone who knows his way around a committee hearing room, Representative Brian King, a Democrat from District 23. And Representative King, I know this is a quick break for you as the race continues on. Give us some overall observations as you look at the legislative session this year.
Well, first, thanks, Boyd, for having me. It's good to be with you. It's been a fascinating session. I think that we've seen some of the polarization that you see politically on a national level filter down to the state. This is my 16th session, and they are all difficult in some ways when you're serving in the super minority, which we are. I am as a Democrat. But, boy, I'll tell you, I've never seen it be quite so easy for bills run by Democrats to be killed simply because they're Democrats than I have this session. That doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah.
But you always, in a super minority position, have to deal with the reality that you don't get the benefit of the doubt if there is doubt, and that's even more true this session.
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to ask you just kind of on that political side of things, the fact that the filing deadline was so much earlier before the session began kind of marked some territory, I think, in terms of some of the political battles, and I think maybe have contributed to some of that polarization.
Yeah, I think that's true. I myself, of course, am running for governor, and so I've tried to actually consciously not speak about things in a different way than I did my first 15th session. I think I've done pretty well on that, actually. But listen, people, it's hard to avoid thinking about and sort of aiming in that direction at times for people, both taking shots at individuals who are running for other offices and, again, retreating to your corners politically.
Yeah, we have to get past all of that.
We do.
Getting back to those things of integrity and civility and getting to good policy based on those principles is so important.
Totally. And we do a better job of it here in Utah than we do in Congress. Because we know each other. I have some of my best friends in the legislature are Republicans and vice versa. I think they would say the same thing about me. And so we can't do anything as Democrats without having Republican support. And so I work very hard to have good relationships with folks across the aisle.
Yeah, and you have to do that because when you function that way, you have to have relationships, not just transactions.
Exactly.
And I think that's such a big deal.
Exactly.
You have been such a proponent in terms of water and the environment. I know we have one bill in particular, House Bill 472 on the water revisions. Give us just a description of that and kind of what you're anticipating down the home stretch here.
A little context, I think, is important. I went to our bill drafter who deals with water, who is Patricia Owen, and she is really, really good. And I went to the state Great Salt Lake Commissioner Brian Steed and to others and said, look, we got to get more water to the lake. I'm inclined to want to light my hair on fire and stand on the rooftop and yell about it. And they said, you could do that if you want, but probably not. And that may be politically advantageous for you, Brian, but a better thing to do would be to run a bill that does something that we would really like to see done, which is develop a centralized water database that can be used as a resource for all of us. That's not going to get the water to the Great Salt Lake immediately, but it forms a part of a foundation that allows us to do that more quickly in the future. I said, if you think that's the best policy, I'm happy to do it. And the result is HB 472. Scott Sandel, a Republican in the Senate, is my Senate sponsor for the bill. We got it through the House in good shape. It's sitting over in the Senate. We'll see if it gets through today. But I'll tell you, we've got to, whether it is having good bills run that form a foundation for putting water in the lake eventually, because we have coordinated effort between water districts and agricultural interests and different shareholders and different stakeholders in that issue, which is what this bill is, or whether it is something more dramatic. We have got to fix the Great Salt Lake. It's got to get healthier for us, and if it isn't, none of us living along the Wasatch Front are going to want to stay here.
Yeah, no question about it. And it is so important just to get all of that data into a central place so we can make the better decisions.
Exactly.
Get the things done.
And that is critical, because right now we have we have dozens, maybe even hundreds of different water sources and users and shareholders, and there isn't a centralized water database that'll allow us to make the best decisions. This bill will help us with that.
It's so important, and this is, again, one of those where you see bipartisan support coming together so we can get good information, so we can make good policy decisions and get the right result, especially when it comes to the Great Salt Lake. Representative Brian King, Democrat District 23, a great leader here on Utah's Capitol Hill, fostering a lot of those important conversations. Brian, as always, we appreciate you having you on the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Boyd.
All right, and good luck. You've got just a little over 10 hours to go. And
We'll make it. We'll make it. Thank you.
The race is on Representative Brian King, and I love the fact that he focuses on this whole idea of making sure we have the right relationships. You can't just be transactional if you're going to get to good governance and good governing. And as Representative King pointed out, we do it better in Utah by far than they do in our nation's capital, and we can even do better here. And even though there is a super majority and a super minority for the Democrats in the state, it still relies on relationships, getting back together, having real principled policy discussions that can lead us to results that can do a couple of things. Once you can check the result, you can hold people accountable. When you actually get to the results, you can look at what changes do we need to make, and how do we do that. But otherwise, we just end up with a lot of political chatter, and that political chatter keeps us a very safe distance from having the conversations that will produce the results I think everybody wants, regardless of political party. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. We will continue to broadcast live here from Utah State Capitol. Coming up at 3 o'clock, Jeff Kaplan's going to pick up the baton and take you through the afternoon and drive time from the Capitol on the last day of the legislative session. KSL News Radio will be here into the evening with KSL at night as we watch the final day of the legislative session tick away, and we'll see what gets done, what gets put off, and what comes next. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. It's the last day of Utah's 2024 legislative session. $2.5 million will be going to different municipalities to help with aid for the homeless. However, House Minority Leader Angela Romero told Tim and Amanda this morning she wishes they had done more.
I would have loved to seen more funding go into homeless services and followed the governor's his route that he wanted to go.
Some bills that are still waiting for action today include potential funding for an NHL stadium, privacy for NIL contracts for athletes, and water legislation. Among those bills, one looks to give new home builders incentives for using water-wise turf or other water-saving alternatives. Another has the goal of creating a state water database, making it much easier to keep track of our water. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A huge wildfire burning in the Texas Panhandle has killed hundreds of cattle. The governor of Texas is asking for help as ranchers try to take care of those that have survived.
If there's any state, any city, any community that's provided hay, as governor of Texas, I want to say thank you for your help. But also, please send more.
The fire is the largest in Texas history. It's killed at least 2 people and destroyed the town of Stinnett. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average ending trading today up 90 points. The NASDAQ was up 183, the S&P 500 up 40. And our KSL weather, we've got wind until a front moves through tomorrow, and then rain and snow. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Good morning. I'm the 40% off window company.
40% off? Of what?
Hey, 40% off.
Yeah, I'll bet it's your biggest sale of the year. This week only, because you need a model home in our neighborhood. Well, nothing. It's baloney. Hi, this is Kathy.
And Doug of Window World. When you hear those things, you know you've entered the baloney zone.
Resist the force of the baloney zone.
Find Window World online at windowworldutah.com.
Or call Window World at 281-8111. That's 281-8111.
And that's no baloney.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. A little experiment here that you can try in your home just for fun. Take 2 water heaters, run hard water through one and soft water through the other, then count how many years each one lasts. Now, of course, I can save you all that trouble because the experiment takes place every day in countless homes right here in the state of Utah. The result's always the same. Hard water makes water heaters and other appliances conk out years before they should. And that's why when Dee and I build our new home, I informed the builder that we'd have Connecticut put in our soft water. I just won't settle for anything else. With Connecticut, you'll use 2/3 less salt. All the mechanical design makes it virtually maintenance-free. And I'll tell you what, your water heater and other appliances will last years longer. All you have to do is contact my friends at Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. To learn more, call Connecticut. It's 801-576-8600 or log on to softwaterutah.com.
If you know me, Hans Olsen, you know my wife's the most important thing in my life. What she wants, I deliver. And it looks like we're getting new cabinets. I took her to the Euromax cabinet showroom in Pleasant Grove, and she hasn't looked at me the way she looked at those cabinets in 15 years. Doors that close quietly with the press of a button, LED lighting inlaid, waterproof box, shelves, and doors that won't warp from moisture. Every color and design imaginable for those doors. Simply put, the most magnificent cabinets your eyes will ever behold. Mike and Max combined a vision of over 35 years of experience to bring us Euromax. Max with his Ukraine roots, and Mike with 25 years of installation, it delivers the greatest in cabinet design, building, and installation. Truly, my amazing wife was in awe. We both were. And if I have to buy her love, I will. Go see all the possibilities at EuromaxFurniture.com. That's EuromaxFurniture.com. Whether you're rebuilding a kitchen or starting a new build, it's EuromaxFurniture.com for your cabinets. Euromax, built for you.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Crash free on the Valley freeways, but not on Redwood Road. We have an accident blocking a center lane of travel southbound Redwood at 2100 South. Need a perfect event venue? There's a place. This is the place, Heritage Park. Ideal for weddings and events, featuring 11 venues, beautiful grounds, affordability for any celebration. Call or visit thisistheplace.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, strong south winds until a front moves through tomorrow afternoon. We'll see rain changing to snow into Sunday. Valleys could get 2 to 5 inches, the northern mountains up to 2 feet. Right now, 63 degrees, mostly cloudy and windy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. A special edition of Inside Sources.
We want to look at what is actually going to impact you, your community, your neighborhood, and the state of Utah.
KSL is live from the Utah State Capitol building with state lawmakers. It's Eye on the Hill 2024 with Boyd Matheson and Inside Sources.
Well, we are in the committee hearing room, one of the many committee hearing rooms here at Utah's state capitol as we come down the home stretch, final day of the 45-day, fastest 45 days in the nation, I think, in terms of legislative sessions. And we'll cover all of it here on KSL News Radio. Stay tuned throughout the afternoon. George Kaplan coming up at the top of the hour. He'll get you home safe and smart as he broadcasts here from the Capitol as well. KSL at night, we'll pick it up from there as everything marches towards the close at midnight tonight of the state legislature. As we continue to move that all forward, I want to go back to a conversation I had yesterday because one of the other things going on in downtown Salt Lake City today is Roots Tech. Roots Tech 2024. It is an extraordinary event right here from Salt Lake City. It emanates from here. It is broadcast around the planet. Millions of people around the world lean in and participate in that. And it's just an extraordinary thing. And it's not just for those who are interested in genealogy work or family history work or records work or DNA work. Over the years, there's so many different pieces to all of this. So I had a conversation yesterday with Steve Rockwood, and I want to go back to that because I think there's some very fascinating things that you may have missed yesterday, and there's still time for you to participate and be part of it. It is an amazing experience. Here's my conversation with Steve Rockwood.
It is always a pleasure to have Steve Rockwood on the program, and of course today kicks off another amazing Roots Tech. It is one of the most extraordinary things that I think we don't even appreciate that emanates from right here in Salt Lake City and hits all points of the compass all around the world. And Steve, I know this is a busy, crazy day and a crazy weekend for you, but welcome back to the show. And here we go, Rootex 2024.
Thank you, Boyd. It's so good to be with you. I apologize in advance for the background noise, but it's really hopping down here.
That's great. No, we love that. That's real noise. We like real interviews. So, well, give us kind of the high level and an update. This event continues to expand globally. Give us some sense of the reach and what you're hoping people walk away with this year.
You bet. I'll tell you, more than anything, we're just humbled. We just can't believe what's happening with Roots Tech. It's just one more way that literally the world is gathering. And that Utah is the epicenter of this. As you know, throughout our history, the state of Utah has really been considered the center of family history, and Roots Tech is one manifestation of that. This is the world's largest gathering of people who want to discover, gather, and connect their families, whether they're paid expert genealogists and technologists or just the curious that want to find out who they are, where they come from, and most importantly, from whom they come. And it's all happening right here at the Salt Palace.
It is amazing, and it really is one more evidence. We always talk about it that Utah's no longer the crossroads of the West. It's the crossroads of the world, and I think Roots Tech manifests that probably better than anything out there. And give us some sense this year. You have always been so powerful in showing how important it is that we connect to stories, and how will that play out and be featured this year?
Well, you know, story is the great equalizer, if you will. I mean, this is I call it all-star weekend for the wonderful genealogists, the archivists, the librarians, the societies that really fuel this whole industry. And there are thousands of them that come here to the Salt Palace and tens of thousands that come to us online. But it's the broader audience. It's the people that actually benefit from the work of these people. And even if they don't start diving into it themselves. I don't like to say, the beginners. They don't have to be beginners. They just want to find out and connect to their family. And those are the millions that come. I just got a report right now. We just launched, and we already have over 1 million people who have joined us online in one way or another because this is a universal interest. People want to connect. They want to belong. They want to know who they are. And that's why we have this for them.
It's so amazing and so powerful. Give us a little sense in terms of some of those you're going to be featuring, some of the activities that will take place both there at the Salt Palace and online as we roll through the weekend.
Well, you mentioned, so why is the power of story? And I mentioned that it's the story that everyone gets involved. That's what brings everyone to it. And so what you're going to see here, I think, are ways that stories will be able to get generated, preserved, and shared turbocharged. Now, we call this Roots Tech. People come and they want to learn about the latest methodologies, the latest breakthroughs of DNA, of genetics, of record keeping, of tree building, and that. But the tech side is the great enabler. And about 7 or 8 years ago at Roots Tech, it was a very unique conference because DNA really came to bear. I think you're going to feel the exact same thing this year when it comes to generative AI. Generative AI is the way that you're going to storyize all these names, dates, and places in ways that we never thought possible before.
Wow. My head's spinning on that one, Steve.
As is mine, as are our wheels are spinning, because this is happening so fast. And the nice thing about this industry, too, when all these breakthroughs come, this industry finds a way to use them responsibly. It finds a way to use them to create light. As you know, you've been part of the incredible headlines just in the last year with generative AI. Appropriately, there's been concerns about responsible use of the risk and concerns. Well, here at Roots Tech, you're going to see amazing good use of it, responsible use of it, how it will connect people, how it will create light. And I can't wait to see it. People keep asking me, well, what are we going to see? And quite honestly, I can't answer that. I'll answer really well 3 days from now because I'm just as curious as everyone else.
That is fantastic. I can't wait to see that all play out. We're going to stay covered on that throughout the weekend and into next week because these stories this is really, many people look at this as a big event, as kind of a big end, but it's really just a big beginning of what comes next for so many people. What's the one thing that you really hope that people come away from this year's Roots Tech maybe thinking different or doing different as it relates to family search, and to these amazing interconnected stories that we have as fellow travelers here on planet Earth?
That's an easy one. First and foremost, I just invite everyone to come and see this. Come and experience it. If you're here within a radius, come to Salt Lake City. There's still time to register if you want to go to all the classes and that, and the main stage. But if not, come and see the expo hall. It's free. You got to come if you're within the distance. Come and feel it. What we really want is for people to say, what I love when people come to Roots Tech and they're walking out the door, I love to hear, I had no idea. That's what they say. I had no idea. And it's not just what they learned intellectually. It's because of the connections. It's the feelings that they have of, wow, my family matters. My story matters. I matter. And now I know how a way to capture that. That's what I want people to feel, and especially those that are not in the space. And if you don't live within the radius that you can get here, then log on online, and we are broadcasting as much as we can to you so you can have that same spirit, that same feeling in the comfort of your own home with your house slippers on.
Yeah, love that. And we love that whole idea of I had no idea. We try to do that every day on this show. And you do it in such a powerful way and help people seeing the interconnectedness. It just breaks down so many of the barriers, and so many of the things that we think are problems in the world really aren't when you realize how interconnected we really are. Steve Rockwood is the president and CEO of Family Search International, global nonprofit sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It is an amazing, extraordinary event. You will walk away with the I had no idea moment, radical curiosity and amazement. That's the name of the game. Steve, a very busy day. We're going to keep following this through the weekend. Thanks for carving out some time for us, and good luck with Roots Tech 2024.
Thank you, boy. You're the best. Appreciate it.
All right, that's my conversation with Steve Rockwood, a big event in downtown Salt Lake City. We're broadcasting live from just up the hill at Utah's Capitol Hill, the last day of the Utah legislative session. We'll step aside for one last break, come back for some final thoughts, and we'll turn it over to Jeff Kaplan for your afternoon drive as we continue to broadcast from the state capitol as lawmakers are busy trying to get everything done before midnight tonight when the legislative clock runs out and the legislative session will be gavelled out. We'll be right back.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from PI or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then PI Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Are you looking to get a COVID-19 booster to stay healthy this cold and flu season? If you join the Beehive study, you'll have the chance to receive up to $550 for getting a booster and completing weekly COVID tests and brief surveys about your health. Don't want to get a COVID-19 booster? That's okay too. You can still join the Beehive study and receive up to $550 for completing the weekly COVID tests and surveys. Help advance research at the University of Utah while taking care of yourself this season. Call 801-203-0320 or email beehivestudy@utah.edu to learn more. You can also visit the study website at beehivestudy.com.
If there's a problem during your siding, gutter, or window installation project, most contractors will try to hide it, ignore it, or blame someone else. It's called passing the buck or turning a blind eye, or my favorite, finger pointing. My question is, where is the accountability? Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors, and look, sometimes problems just happen, no matter who you hire. Maybe the wrong color siding gets delivered, despite the order being placed perfectly, or maybe a downspout gets cut short. Honestly, it could be anything. At RGS Exteriors, mistakes are rare, but if something goes wrong, I can absolutely, positively, 100% guarantee you we'll never hide it, and we'll never pass the buck. We'll make certain everything turns out right for you. That's people over profits. That's the RGS Exteriors way. For a free estimate on siding, gutters, or windows, call 801-280-3110, rgsexteriors.com, rgsexteriors.com.
It's a mystery where Old Spice finds its amazing scents like Himalayan sea salt, but I'm thrilled they have because no other body wash exfoliates and moisturizes 24/7 like Old Spice Gentleman's Himalayan sea salt body wash. Now, if only there was a mountain range separating the Indian subcontinent from the Tibetan plateau where I could hide my Old Spice and keep my family from stealing it, my impossibly smooth skin will finally be safe.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Any Hour Services can help unclog any drain in your house, whether you have a backup, a clog, or a slow drain you want fixed. Call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Tim and Amanda.
Yes, KSL is a trusted institution. I mean, it's a 100-year-old institution, and I know that with that legacy comes a responsibility and a trust. But I want you to know, we have diverse voices at this radio station. Young people, we have people of all different ages, of all different cultural backgrounds, who put their 2 cents into what stories we cover from day to day, a voice that is given to those stories.
Well, I've been kicking around the Salt Lake City market for 40 years. I felt like I needed a decade of radio under my belt before I even attempted to climb that mountain. So as important as KSL is to you, you need to know that it's an important institution for both of us and something that we take very seriously, in the responsibility of providing the right news and information for you and your families every day and carrying on the tradition of this great radio station.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Managing today's uncertainty can be overwhelming.
We crave security, and it's uncomfortable when we sense a lack of control over our lives. Develop a routine for a more balanced lifestyle with healthy habits and fun. Focus on what you can control, even if it's little things, like a before-bedtime ritual.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, on the final day of the legislative session, lawmakers hoping to get their bills through before midnight. Second, today's big winds could turn into a substantial snowstorm when a cold front arrives tomorrow. And third, the wildfires burning in Texas have taken a big toll on people and towns and a huge toll on the cattle that roam the Texas prairie. Right now, 63 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources. A special edition of Inside Sources, live from the Utah State Capitol on KSL News Radio.
Well, welcome back to this special edition from the Capitol here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. And, of course, we're up here today because it is the last day of the legislative session here in the state of Utah. It is the fastest 45 days of any legislature in the country. I think we do a pretty amazing job here in the state. And, again, on budget, on time. Get in, get out, get it done, and move on. And that's the way it's supposed to be done. And while there are challenges, there are difficulties in this whole process. There's partisanship and politics that get played into it. I still think for the most part we do a pretty good job. If you missed earlier, we had Democratic Representative Brian King join us here in the committee hearing room in the Capitol, where we're broadcasting from. And just as a note, coming up at the top of the hour, Jeff Kaplan will be he's sitting right beside me right now, getting warmed up and ready to go. He'll get you home safe and smart today from the Capitol as he follows what is happening as the hours and minutes tick away to get those last-minute things done for the legislature. And then, of course, KSL at night will pick it up after that and get you all the way to the end, hopefully to the end before midnight when things get done here and they gavel out for this particular session of the Utah State Legislature. Well, it's been an interesting week in terms of all the politics. We talked with Representative King here in the state about one of the ramifications from a bill from a few years ago, and that is the moving of the date when candidates had to declare their candidacy. And so that actually is a date now, this year. Candidates had to declare if they were running for office before the Utah legislative session began 45 days ago. And on one hand, you can say, well, that's good, get everybody in and declared. But I think it has created some political moments and some political posturing on a few messaging kinds of bills, or the way legislators have gone back and forth or traded barbs with each other or with the governor's office, whatever it may be. And so I do think we have to be careful there. I think that's one worth revisiting as we go along. Of course, the other big news from this week was former Ambassador Nikki Haley being in the state of Utah in the run-up to Super Tuesday. And as you're thinking about planning your week for next week, make sure you've got Tuesday circled on your calendar so that you can participate in the caucus system, whether you're with the Democrats or with the Republicans. Many of the smaller parties are also caucusing on Tuesday. Presidential preference poll for the Republicans will be part of that as well. And the big thing is that we all lean in and engage in the process. And so as we look at how we go about that, I want to get to something that I share regularly when we start getting into the heat of political season. And actually, as the session ends here on Utah's Capitol Hill, the political season will heat up. You've got caucus, then conventions for the political parties, and you'll have primary races, and then that'll stream right on into the general election for the fall. And so when we go about that, it doesn't matter where the election is, whether it's a presidential race, whether it's a municipal race. The interesting thing that we have to remember as voters, we don't just get what we pay for. We actually end up paying for what we get. And as voters, we generally get what we deserve. And so that's why we have to lean in on these things and actively participate. And so things are high stakes when it comes to all of that. And as voters, we should make sure we're not just being swayed by the latest polling or political spin, and especially because so much of what happens is media-driven these days. It's important for us as voters to really understand the issues and understand the candidates and what's happening there. Most of us won't have the opportunity to do a sit-down interview with a candidate for a mayor's race or a governor's race or a presidential race, and I actually think that's okay. I actually think the most important thing we need to do is sit down with ourselves and ask ourselves a few questions about candidates before we're willing to cast a vote for them. So I'm going to rattle off a few of these for you today as you roll into the weekend and as you start thinking about things that you're going to do and how you're going to participate on Tuesday next week. I've always said that one of the most important questions you should ask yourself about any candidate for any office is, how is this candidate positioned to show real political courage? We have way too many in politics today who can't even begin to contemplate what would happen if they lost an election or how they would function outside of elected office. And so I always caution people, if you can't visualize what that looks like, if the candidate is so consumed with holding on to power or amassing that power or extending their time in power, there's no way that person can show political courage. Because if everything you're doing is consultant certified or poll tested and approved, there's no space for political courage. And I often like to think of it in this way. I love to ask a candidate the question, what would be worth it to you to be just a one-termer in office if you could get it done? But it meant, in order to get it done, you'd lose your job. And if the candidate can't answer that, you might want to think again about who you're voting for. Candidates should have something that they're so passionate about, so that they think is so important, that is the essence of their public service, that they would be willing to lose an election in order to get it done. That's an important question. I think one of the other things to consider is when you listen to a candidate, where does it take your thoughts? In other words, when you listen to someone, do you just think about them? Is it all about their story? Is it all about what they're doing? Or do you start thinking about your family, your community, your neighborhood? Because if it's all about them, then that's pretty much where their focus is going to be, so you need to check that at the door. You can also always ask, what's this candidate for? Not just what they're against. That's the easy part. You know they're against their opponent. You know they're against the opposing party. That's the easy stuff. But can they tell you what their agenda is, their positive, forward-moving agenda? Because if they can't articulate that, then they're going to be in the political party game as opposed